Hi. So, um, by now everybody has pretty much heard about the Sandra Bland situation, or incident. I don't know what you want to call it. It's definitely fishy. I'm the kind of person, I like to look at everything. And I admit that sometimes the first time that I think about something, I don't have the same reaction that I do after I sit and think about it. So I'm going to tell you my first reaction to watching the Sandra Brown video. My first reaction was, shut up. What are you doing, lady? Just shut up and do what he tells you. Stop being irritated. Just listen to him. And I realized after watching the video a couple of times, and thinking about what I would do in that situation, I realized I would shut up and I would do what he said. And I thought about it and I realized, she really didn't do or say anything wrong. She was irritated. And, while my initial response was, shut up, don't be irritated with him, I sat there and I thought about it and I said, she has every right to be irritated. She was pulled over, or she wasn't even really pulled over. She pulled over herself to let him go by because he was riding her car. So, she had every right to be irritated. And then I sat and I thought, after I said, she does have a right to be irritated, I thought, if she has a right to be irritated, which she does because she's a human and we all have a right to our emotions, do we really have to be afraid that a cop is not going to like our tone and yank us out of our car? That's just ridiculous to me. He had no reason to reach into her car. She wasn't being arrested or detained for anything. She was inside of her car. She didn't have to put her cigarette out. She didn't have to do anything she didn't want to do except for stay there and get the ticket, which is all that should have happened. She should not have been forcibly removed from her car. She should not have been screamed at. And she should never have been arrested. She should never have been thrown on the ground like a common criminal either. Because what did she do? She didn't do anything. I followed the Trayvon Martin and the Michael Brown cases pretty closely when they were coming out. And this is just to give you a little bit of a perspective on how I viewed things. I did not see the Trayvon Martin case as racist. What I think happened there was George Zimmerman is an idiot. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. He is the biggest fucking idiot. I think he got himself this job. He got himself that gun, and right away he wanted to show off and just show how tough he was. And I think regardless of race, he was looking for someone to go after and target so that he can look tough. I don't think that skin color was a factor, and I think that if the George Zimmerman trial had been tried as anything other than a hate crime, George Zimmerman might be in jail today, because I don't think there was enough evidence to prove that it was a hate crime. It was definitely negligence, and it was definitely abuse of power. And so please don't get me wrong, I don't agree with what George Zimmerman did, and I feel nothing but the utmost sympathy for Trayvon Martin's family, and it was a life lost, and so of course I mourn that because it's a life, but don't think that it was a race issue with Trayvon Martin. With Michael Brown, I am conflicted. I don't know if it was a race issue. I don't know if it was self-defense. I don't know. So like I said, I try to look at all aspects. I don't want to just say because it's a black person who was killed, oh, it has to be racist. But because I know that not everybody is like that. Some people are just assholes and they abuse their power, and like I said, I don't know. And in no way am I saying that the system does not treat African Americans differently. I think some places do, some departments do. Other departments, the police are just out of control in general. And this isn't to knock, again, this isn't to knock the good cops, because I know that there are good cops. But I think the corrupt ones need to be exposed. And while I have no idea if Sandra Brown's case is a matter of race, it's my gut feeling that it is. Because let's be honest, you know, I don't see a white woman being treated the same way Sandra Brown was. Bland, I'm sorry. I was talking about Michael Brown. And I hesitate to say that because, you know, when I grew up, I did not see black people. I did not see white people. I didn't see Mexican. I saw just people. I grew up in Astoria, Queens. The block that I lived on was so diverse. You know, it was black people in one house, there was Muslims in another, Christians in this house, Spanish down the block, and we all knew each other and we all grew up together. And like I said, when I grew up, it wasn't a matter of race. It wasn't until I got older that I started to really see, you know, people being treated differently because of the color of their skin. And I've seen, you know, some racism committed against all sorts of different races. It's a heart problem, in my opinion. And you know, I have experienced some of it myself. And I didn't think back on it because it didn't hit me. I didn't realize what it was when I was young. My grandfather is Honduran, and you know, his skin color, a lot of people confuse him with being mixed or black, and he's not either. He's Spanish and Jewish, but you know, a lot of people think that he's black. And I remember someone wouldn't let him pick me up from school one day because I'm white and he looked black. And then again on 9/11, you know, they would stop him because he looked Muslim, and I realize now things did happen because of his skin color, things that I did not really process when I was a child. But so please don't mistake me saying that racism isn't real. It is definitely real. I've seen it firsthand. Even as an adult now, I've seen things happen that I don't. But with Trayvon Martin, I don't believe it was race. Michael Brown, I don't know. Sandra Bland, ugh, I cannot say her name after saying Michael Brown. With her, I don't know. I don't think there's enough evidence outside of the video, because I mean, you don't really know if someone's an asshole, if they're just racist, until, you know, they actually come out and say, hey, I did it for this reason. But my gut feeling is that it was racist, and that if it had been a white woman, he wouldn't have treated her that way. I think, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to offend anybody, but I almost think that the belief is that black women are physically stronger than white women, and that's not true. There are all sorts of body shapes, but I think that's the mindset, and I think that so people are rougher with black women, and that's not right either, at all. And that definitely is racist to treat anybody that way because you think that they're more physically capable just because of their skin color. Now whether or not that was in the cop's mind, I don't know, but that's not even the point anymore. I'm getting off topic. So back to Sandra Bland. I told you that my initial response was shut up and listen, and then I thought we shouldn't have to mind our P's and Q's with cops. Should we be polite? Yes, but Sandra was polite. She was very polite. Watch the video. Go and watch the video if you don't believe me. I've watched it like 10 times. She didn't curse. She didn't yell at the cop. She didn't get in his face. She didn't stick her hand out the window and put it in his head or in his face and get, you know, abusive with him, or she didn't do anything like that. He asked her are you upset? And she told him, or he asked her if she was okay, one or the other. I gotta go back and see word for word, but he asked her along those lines, are you okay? And she told him. She told him exactly why she was upset. And yeah, her tone was a little pissy, a little irritated, but let me ask you for a second. If you got pulled over and you had done nothing wrong, you wouldn't be pissy? You don't think you'd be a little upset? You don't think it would display in how you responded to the police? I'm sorry. I think you'd be upset. I would be upset. Anybody would be upset. And that's completely understandable. So he starts screaming at her because she won't put out her cigarette, and she's telling him her rights, which he should already know, and the cops are allowed to lie to you, for the record. So I think he was definitely trying to intimidate her, and that wasn't working, and so he got upset, and he started screaming at her. He yanks her out of the car. So she's out of the car. He puts her on the ground. Is that necessary? Put handcuffs on her. Put her in the car. That's still wrong, but you have to make it worse by putting her on the ground. So now I've covered how I felt about that. It's awful. But I wanted to get to know this woman a little bit more. So I started looking at some of her videos because I had heard that she was suicidal. And that's why she killed herself and everything. And I want to tell you, my mother, she tried to kill herself back in 2010. She was very, very suicidal. She was upset. I had to hold her down while the cops broke my door to get inside. My mother's not suicidal anymore. That's a stage in your life that you go through when something happens to you that really impacts your emotional state. Sandra Bland, I can't talk about Michael Brown apparently. Sandra Bland was suicidal at one stage in her life when something awful happened to her, and I think it's really awful that that the media would try to, or the police station, or whoever is putting it out. I think it's awful that they would try to push that she was still suicidal. You have any idea how disrespectful that is to her family, who knows her and who knows that she's not that person anymore. If that happened to my mother, and someone tried to tell me, well, she was suicidal at one point in her life, and so she magically became suicidal again, even though her life is going great, I would be so mad. You have no idea. I would not believe it. So I have no surprise that Sandra Bland's family does not believe it, because I don't believe it. I know how the suicide mind works. This woman's life was going great. She would not have killed herself. And to just to strengthen that belief, I don't need evidence. I don't need medical records. I don't need someone to sit and tell me how good her life was going. You know why I don't need that? Because I've sat and I've watched her videos. This was a vibrant young woman, and she had a connection with God. Now, whether you believe in God or not, that's not the debate. This woman believed in God. I watched one of her videos where she was involved in a car wreck with a motorcyclist, and I'll show you the video in just a minute. I'm going to put it up for you to see. But the motorist survived the accident, and she was crying. She was just overjoyed with the fact that God was so good that he saved these lives. And I think someone with that level of love and that level of belief and that level of amazement in life, I find it very hard to believe that she would take her own.
Y'all can't tell me that God ain't good. I'm out here on 290 on my way to the beach, and this is what's in my car. You see that? That's a motorcycle in my car. God is so good. The man that flew over my car is standing right here. I saw a body somersault over my car. There is a motorcycle stuck in my trunk. Do you see that? God is too good. You can't tell me God ain't good. You cannot tell me God ain't good. You cannot tell me God is not good. If Sandy ain't never spoke to you today, Sandy is speaking right now. God is so good. Do you hear me? God is so good. I am on the E-way just driving, trying to go to the beach and chill. But he will wake you up for real. God is too good.
After watching that video, how can anybody doubt that she was a woman of God, that she was amazed by life? I think this video is more than enough proof that she did not kill herself. I mean, I don't care about the arguments that the bag wouldn't hold her weight. The bag would hold her weight probably, depending on how she tied it. But I don't believe that's even a factor. I don't believe that bag. I don't think she killed herself with a plastic bag. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Besides, she's 6-something. How would she have hung herself? Anyway, that's not even the point. She was a woman who was very spiritual, obviously, judging from the videos. She believed in God. She obviously had some kind of connection with him, because you can look at her face when she's talking about him and you can just see it in her eyes. There's a light, and you can see it. That mugshot that's been going around, the original mugshot, I'm gonna come out and say I do think that is photoshopped. The one with her eyes being kind of white on the inside, I don't think that one's real. And I say that because I'm a role player, and I have made pictures for vampires and stuff, and I've been able to do that pretty easily with my images. It looks like Photoshop to me. I could be wrong. It looks like Photoshop. Now, the one that people were looking at before that came out, the initial one that they said she looked like she had already been dead in, I'm going to go ahead and come out and say that, yeah, she looks dead in that picture. You can look at the comparisons. You can look at her side by side. You can even tell that, that background does not look like a wall, and her shoulders kind of look like they're pressed down. She looks like she is definitely already dead in that image, in that picture. One other thing I wanted to talk about was this woman, and I'm gonna post the picture in the statement. I'm gonna block out her name, and it's mostly to protect myself, because I don't want to get in any sort of I don't want to expose somebody like that, but I want to bring light to what she said. This is a woman who on her page, this was on her Facebook page, and as stupid as I think it is, I think it's also on her page, and she has every right to post whatever she wants, because I don't pay her internet bills. I mean, so if she wants to be a giant walking douchebag, she can be a giant walking douchebag. But anyway, she posts this post about how, all you traveling Chicago criminals coming through Texas, this is how our police handle things. Traveling Chicago criminals, I don't. Sandra Brown was not a criminal. This was a woman who was inspirational. She was spiritual. To call her a criminal is the most offensive thing I have ever read and heard. I think it's just awful. It's not even just offensive to her family and friends. It's offensive to me. I gotta tell you, it's offensive. It should be offensive to every single person who has any ounce of compassion in their body, because that woman clearly was not a criminal. So this woman then goes on to say a couple of different things. Basically she supports the Texas police. She says they will pull you the F out of the car, and that's what they pay them for, and if I see that go down, I'll back up the officer every time. And basically her response was nasty, but it was how I had initially thought. I mean, I didn't think that Sandra Brown was the criminal. I didn't think that at all. Sandra Bland. I didn't think that at all. I thought, she just wasn't behaving the way she should have in the presence of a cop. And then, like I said, I realized we should not have to behave a specific way. We shouldn't have to, we should be polite. We should, be respectful. But we should not have to be afraid that our upset or our being irritated, we shouldn't be afraid that upsets the cops to the point where they yank us out of the car and we end up dead. I think her post, and I just wanted to bring light to it because she's got the Confederate flag in the background, and it makes me mad because she's being a stereotype. And I want to point out that not all Southerners are like her. I'm from the South. Admittedly, I'm from New York. I'm from Astoria. I mentioned that. But at a younger age, I moved to Virginia, and then I moved to Louisiana. So, for the most part, I've been raised in the South, and my grandmother is Southern. So, I've always been exposed to that culture. We're not all like that. I have to tell you, we are not all like that. And she is the type of woman who wants to make me apologize. And I'm a firm believer that I don't have anything to apologize for because I didn't do anything. My ancestors didn't do anything either. They came from Italy and they came from Ireland. So I didn't have anything to do with all that. But like I said, this woman is disgusting. And I said before, I don't see race. I still don't see race. It's not a factor in my everyday thinking, like, oh, that person's black, or oh, that person's white. That's not something I think about. So, I don't know if this woman is... I don't know if she's racist or if she's just stupid. Maybe she's both, but I think her statement was just ugly and very insensitive to the family, to Sandra Bland's family. I want to just tell you how sorry I am. I don't know if you'll see this video or listen to it all the way through. I am so sorry for your loss. I really am. I can't imagine how I would feel if that was someone in my family. If that was my grandfather, or my mother, or one of my cousins. It doesn't matter who it would have been. I can't imagine how I would feel. I am hoping beyond hope that that officer is arrested or something, and I hope that whatever cover-up, because there is definitely a cover-up going on here. I hope that it is exposed. I hope that it is found out. And I want to just go on the record real quick and say I normally keep my opinions like this to myself. I don't get involved in this because I'm going to offend somebody. I know I'm going to offend somebody. I don't care if it's... I don't know who it would be, but I guarantee you I will offend somebody. So I just keep my opinions to myself, but this time I couldn't. And I'm thinking, lately maybe I'm going to start voicing my opinions a little bit more, because maybe if more people did, maybe more people would be open to hearing other opinions. Sandra Bland seemed like a beautiful woman. She seemed like a vibrant person, full of life. I want to know what happened to her, because something happened to her. And if you think for a second that it is not your concern and it is not your problem because you're white or you're Spanish or you're Asian, just because you're not black that it's not your problem, guess what? It is your problem. Because this happened to a black woman today. It could happen to another black woman tomorrow. It could happen to a white person tomorrow. It could happen to a Hispanic person tomorrow. Yes, I think this is about race. I do think that this is about race, that Sandra Bland was treated poorly because of her race. However, I think a lot of these cops, and again, not to knock the good cops, I know they are out there, but a lot of these cops are taking way too much liberty. They are abusing their power, and I think that if we don't realize that this is our concern, we could be on the receiving end of something we don't want to be on. Stop saying it's not your problem. It is your problem. An innocent life was taken. A woman who did nothing wrong died. There is no real good explanation for why she died. And if you believe for a second that she killed herself, you are naive and you are tricking yourself into believing an irrational story. It's not even a good story. It's not even a good excuse. It sounds like bullshit, and it is bullshit. She didn't kill herself. I want the truth.